A win is a win is a win. We don't exactly care how we get it as long as we get it, right? Washington Redskins defeat the Arizona Cardinals 20-15. This is going to be a game that we play. We have 3 games left in the season. This is a game that we definitely needed to get. This game and next week's games were projected as potential victories for us. Even the Giants game is projected as potential victory for us. But our biggest enemy right now is ourselves. I think nothing was more obvious than the Chargers game that we played last week. That game was abysmal as far as our attitude towards winning, our attitude towards being successful. And that's very well documented amongst basically anybody who reports on the Washington Redskins, professional and or otherwise. Game recap on this. We ended up playing this game at home against the Cardinals. We played against a fairly banged up Arizona Cardinal team. Blaine Gabbert at quarterback. And Blaine Gabbert's not a very good quarterback. Although I kind of felt sorry for him a little bit in this football game, but you only feel so sorry for the opposing team's quarterback. Kirk Cousins actually played a fairly decent game. Threw for 196 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Had 1 sack in this game. I believe Chandler Jones got to him. His quarterback rating was at a 52.8, which isn't too bad. We had virtually no running game in this game. One of the things that I had posted in the notes for this game for me was that it almost looked like we've come pretty close to abandoning the running game. Not a whole lot of looks for Samaje Perine. He had only 14 carries, but he only had 37 yards. He didn't have a whole lot at all. This team is just not in a run-blocking mood for some reason, and that's the part that scares me going into these next 2 games, and it should scare you as well. Just how dependent are we going to be on Kirk Cousins' arm when it's very, very doubtful that he's going to be back next season? He's going to make business decisions himself. He would be crazy not to. I would. And I think you would too. If you knew that you were playing on a football team that you didn't think necessarily wanted you back next season, wasn't going to pay you for the next couple of seasons, and you had to put yourself out there in the off season to be marketable, to get the biggest dollar value that you possibly can. You can't do that when you start throwing picks. You can't do that when you're hurt. So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I last out the remainder of the season and play solid football. And that doesn't mean throwing the football in the double coverage, throwing the football into people who are covered. If you're not blatantly wide open, I'm not going to throw it to you. That's just kind of the mentality that I would have. I don't know if Kirk Cousins has that. I think he has exceptions to that rule. I think that if you're Jamison Crowder, or if you're Vernon Davis, he's going to make an exception to you if you are covered. But beyond that, I don't think he's gonna budge on whether or not he's going to throw the football. Samaje Perine had a fairly decent game running the football. I was not happy with the number of looks that Josh Doctson got in this football game. I was not happy with the number of looks that a lot of other individuals on this football team got, which is kind of crappy. I had mentioned it before a couple weeks ago that these are guys that really need to get multiple looks, and they're not necessarily getting them. Crowder had 5 receptions in this football game for 55 yards. Capri Bibbs, for Christ's sake, had 4 receptions. Ryan Grant had 2 receptions. I think Ryan Grant and Josh Doctson each had... Actually, no, wait a minute. I'm looking at the wrong statistic. Hold on here. Josh Doctson had 2 receptions in this game. I believe he was targeted like 4 times, and Ryan Grant was targeted 3 and caught 2. Still, I need more. I need at least... I need somewhere in the ballpark of double digits, personally. Anywhere from 7 to 10. Which, to me, is not hard to do. It really isn't. If you can give me 4 looks a game... 4 looks a half. That's really not asking a lot, especially when there is no running game. But that's just me. Vernon Davis had a couple receptions in this game. So, from a reception standpoint, the ball was fairly well distributed. It's very obvious that Jamison Crowder is the go-to guy for Kirk Cousins, and is going to be pretty much from here on out. And what is up with the special teams? The special teams in this game is abysmal. The special teams is I can't even, when you are used to kickers kicking the ball out of the end zone, I think that a certain measure of complacency sits in, and that's really the only thing that I can explain. It really looked like these guys were not prepared to return the football, and if you think about it, there hasn't been a whole lot of return on the football the last, season. Most of these kickers are kicking it out of the end zone so they can guarantee their defense a 20-yard line start, but man, when you got special teams performance like what the Arizona Cardinals have given you, then why not kick it short? Kick it short and give your special teams a chance, especially when you know that Washington ranks as low as they do in the special teams area. One of the things going into this football game is I did a little bit of research on the Arizona Cardinals when we had played them. They had some injuries coming into this game, just like most teams do. The injuries that took significance with me was their injuries at offensive line. They were missing their right guard, Earl Walford, and their big one was Jared Veldheer, left tackle. And coming into this football game is missing your left tackle and having your backup come in here. And I can't necessarily remember exactly who this guy was. I have it in my notes somewhere. But with their Will Holden, that's who it was. Will Holden was at left tackle, and Junior Galette should have had a field day against Will Holden. Junior Galette really had a couple of looks at getting to the quarterback, a couple of times where Blaine Gabbert was able to get the ball out quicker than Junior Galette was able to get there, which is comforting to see. He did have one really, really good sack in this football game where he really schooled Will Holden. And frankly, with the situation that they have at left tackle, I expected to see a little bit more. This was, if you guys remember last year with the Philadelphia Eagles and their starting left tackle, he ended up getting ejected out of the football game against the New York Giants, and they ended up missing him in the game against us. I think it was their right tackle. I can't remember exactly what his name was. Ryan Kerrigan had a field day in that football game. Multiple sacks against their quarterback. And I think I can't remember how many sacks he had. 3 or 4 sacks at least. Was constantly in the face of that quarterback the whole game. I believe the right tackle that went into that game was Vaitai. Vaitai, who played against us this year. Was not a very good backup, did not perform very well at all, and I didn't necessarily see a whole lot more skill from Will Holden, and I expected Junior Galette to have that type of performance in this football game against that backup, and it wasn't necessarily quite there. So something else is going in my notes as far as off-season looks, as far as who it is we retain and who it is that we let go. A lot of things to take into consideration where Junior Galette is concerned. Some factors to take a look at. So that's somebody that I would like a lot of my followers to pen on their grease board what to do with Junior Galette, whether you retain him or whether you let him go. Definitely some pluses and some minuses in that category that need to be addressed. Those are all things that I'll probably address later on in the off season. But I'm definitely keeping notes on Junior Galette. I'm keeping notes on a lot of people on this team. Another thing to take into consideration, this football game also was the game that mathematically eliminated the Arizona Cardinals from playoff contention. That is really, really good to know as a football team that is already eliminated out of playoff contention. It is what it is. After this football game, the Arizona Cardinal fans were pissed. The organization was pissed. The general manager came out on a radio show, which their general manager, amazingly enough, actually talks to the radio personalities in their local area. I don't even think we have a GM. Came out with an apology. Never heard an apology yet from our GM. Talking about how they're going to be busy in this off season. That they had apologized for the performance for their football team and promised that their next 2 games they were going to try to evaluate from here on out where they go. And in 2018, they're going to do whatever it is they can to put a much better product on the football field. That is their general manager, Steve Keim, talking to the Morning of Arizona Sports 98.7 FM. Can I get Bruce Allen on the phone somewhere, anywhere? That son of a bitch won't talk to anybody. Except for the guy above him, and that's about it. Can't get a quote, hardly a quote out of the guy, let alone a radio interview. That's a general manager that I can somewhat respect, unlike ours. Like I said, we don't even have one. Bruce Arians came out right after the football game and said from here on out, Drew Stanton's going to be starting. Drew Stanton, who's hurt, who probably should be sat for the rest of the season now that they're mathematically eliminated. And let's face it, Bruce Arians is making a move to help save his job. But you're talking about a football team that is reacting much, much differently than the Washington Redskins have after they've got mathematically eliminated. And I find that very, very interesting because this football game, it really, really was a battle of who was going to be worse. I do think that there was a certain area in this game where the Arizona Cardinals were kind of playing down a little bit to the competition. It's not so much, and our defense, God bless our defense. I loved our defense in this football game, and I'm not talking about our defense, but this offense was abysmal. This Arizona Cardinal football team marched down the football field on multiple occasions and should have scored touchdowns. Were they able to get 6 rather than 3 points on the occasions that they did? Yeah, there were multiple field goals, 5 field goals. Their kicker went 5 for 5. 1 field goal in the first, 2 in the second, and then 1 in the third and 1 in the fourth. They just settled for field goals in this football game. Could not get that football in the end zone. Had they have scored when they should have, especially when they were in the red zone, we would be taking a look at a loss, which is disturbing to think about. That's how bad that this team ended up playing against us, and we couldn't bring ourselves up to perform at a much better level on offense. I don't know, man. It's hard to evaluate this team right now, knowing that you're not in the playoffs, knowing that some of these players have checked out. This defense played really, really well. I mentioned Anthony Lanier's name several weeks ago. He was a guy in the very, very first half of this season that I started to notice. There were a couple people that impressed me. Stacey McGee was a guy that I had noticed early on. I think it was like week 3, week 4 when I brought up Stacey McGee's name, but I also had mentioned Anthony Lanier. Anthony Lanier was showing me some promise as far as being able to use really, really good technique at gaining penetration and collapsing the pocket, even though that wasn't resulting in tackles for a loss or sacks. It became very, very obvious to me that we had some potential on this defensive line that did not come from the nose tackle position, but we have some defensive ends and some defensive tackles that are actually doing really, really well for us. And we moved Anthony Lanier in several different positions in this game, and we've been doing that. Whenever his rotation has come up, he'll play different techniques. And the move that he put on for the sack, I had watched that play probably 20 times. 15 to 20 times, just watching what it is about him that I noticed before. And it's something that I talk about a lot. And for those of you that want to know what it is that I'm talking about, if you have access to this football game and are able to see the bird's eye view, not the game view, but the bird's eye view, the coach's film view of that play. And they show it on replay if you're watching the actual broadcast. But if you watch that replay several times, I talk on many occasions about defensive linemen, and I'm doing a lot of this in my evaluation of college talent right now because you don't see it a whole lot of the time where college talent is concerned. It's hand movement, it's hand placement, it's hand technique. It is an art form. It is literally an art form. It is just not something that you are shown and you just go out and do. It's like martial arts. You know, how many people can you say that you can show a particular move to on maybe 2 or 3 occasions and then bam, they have it and it's solid? It doesn't happen that way. It comes with field stripping a weapon. It's repetition. It's over and over and over. It's daily practice. It is a part of your craft. And a lot of these guys don't have it, especially at the college level. Anthony Lanier was a guy that showed me some technique at the hand placement level, being able to utilize your hands as you are using your strength and moving your feet. Those 3 combinations in a defensive lineman are so crucial and yet so rare. Even in a pass rusher, a pass rusher. And right now, Ryan Kerrigan is one of those guys who utilizes hand placement really, really well to get to the quarterback because he doesn't quite have the speed he used to have. He doesn't quite have the motor that he used to have. This is a guy that's in his 30s. And the age factor is starting to catch up to him, but he's trying to make up for that in technique. And so far, it's really, really working well for him. But Anthony Lanier, with a couple of sacks in this game and a batted down football that ended up being a fumble recovery he ended up causing a fumble that Preston Smith ended up picking up. Great game by Preston Smith, too, even with the interception on him. But back to Anthony Lanier. That play where he had sacked the quarterback, it was a great display. A good portion of that play is the head fake. It's just the head fake. Head fake, the lineman goes one way and he goes around the other, but the hand technique, when the guy tries to recover, when the lineman tries to recover to pick him back up, the hand technique to be able to swat, rip, and then push the guard away as you're going by in an open middle gap, it's beautiful to watch. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And it doesn't happen all the time, but it's something that you would like to see, that when that opportunity presents itself, to see that technique kick in. When it kicks in and you're able to do it on an open gap after you fake somebody and still be guaranteed a good lane at Blaine Gabbert, it's really, really good to see. And Anthony Lanier is a guy who is playing right now for a roster spot. We've got a couple people right now. Capri Bibbs is another individual right now that I would say is probably vying for a roster spot anywhere in the league at this point. But right now, as a general manager, and we don't have one right now, and that sucks, but part of what makes the good, successful football team successful is knowing when to bail on talent before it sours. And that's key. That is very, very crucial because that's a gamble. But being able to ditch talent and get out of that player's resale value before it sours is crucial. But another aspect of that is being able to notice talent before it peaks. Being able to notice talent before it flourishes, and that's when you want to get in on the ground floor at signing an individual like that. That is why signing Zach Brown right now is crucial. Zach Brown is holding out. Zach Brown is holding out right now because he's going to be getting paid top inside linebacker money. And is that a situation where we should have signed him sooner? Probably not. That's a poor example. But a great example is Anthony Lanier. Taking a look at this guy and being able to see the tail of the tape from him. You don't have to wait until his contract is up before you sign him. But if you're seeing play like this out of a guy like Anthony Lanier, especially at a position where we need somebody desperately to be able to do what it is that he's doing, especially when you lose some defensive line talent like a Jonathan Allen for the rest of the season, and you don't know necessarily what to do at defensive line, you got a guy right here who is saying, hey, what about me? Look at me. You guys want to see somebody you guys are clueless as to who's going to step up? I'm trying to step up, and I'm doing it by showing you what's on the field of play. The one place on earth where it matters the most as far as evaluating talent is game day film. And Anthony Lanier is putting up a tremendous body of work on film during game day, and he's somebody that needs to be taken into consideration. Back to Capri Bibbs. Capri Bibbs played like a guy who wants to play football. Played like a running back who says, hey, you guys have a need? Guys need somebody at running back? I'll be your Huckleberry. Throw me back there. Tell me what you want me to do. Catch a football? All right, I'll catch a football. Run the football? All right, I'll run the football. Beautiful screen. Beautiful screen. I don't necessarily know so much it was Capri Bibbs that scored that touchdown as much as the execution of that screenplay. We are a great screen running team. If we can fake out a defense for even half a second, that screen, it's over. We're going to get massive chunk yardage, if not return it for a touchdown. But Capri Bibbs is a good holdover for us right now. Played a really, really good solid game. I was impressed by him. A couple receptions, couple carries. For some positive yardage on this football team. He's a recent signee, not necessarily something that I'd be looking at long term, but not a bad holdover for us. Also taking a look at some of my notes. One of the things that isn't getting mentioned a whole lot that Doesn't surprise me isn't getting mentioned a whole lot because it was something that was only brought up a couple of times in this football game. Ty Nsekhe. Ty Nsekhe had a huge responsibility in this game. This is a huge responsibility for anybody in any game when you are asked to block and to hold back one of the NFL's best pass rushers. And we have gone up against some of the league's best. Some of the league's best in this season alone. Chandler Jones is a freak. He is an absolute freak. Watching him on a day-to-day basis and seeing the highlight reel footage he's able to put in and game out. You take a look at a guy like that, and Chandler Jones is one of those guys that you take a look at. And if you guys remember, Burgundy Fly Guy was one of those guys that came out a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, we need to hang it up with Trent Williams. We need to hang up Trent Williams this season. We need to give him his surgery now. I said this 2 weeks ago. Take him off, take his pads away from him, take his helmet away from him, put him on injury reserve, give him surgery, and allow him to recover right now. That way I can guarantee that he's going to be healthy come the offseason. Don't wait for the offseason to get this surgery done. Do it now. Do it right now and put Ty Nsekhe at left tackle. And I don't care who it is you stick anywhere else. I don't care if you stick a running back at right guard or left guard for that matter. Put Ty Nsekhe in a position where he's been trained to block and do his job. But take Trent Williams out. And when saying that, I'm looking at this lineup thinking, oh, man, we have got some evil pass rushers that are coming up at us in LA and also against Arizona. And Chandler Jones is one of the best. Chandler Jones is a freak, and I can tell you right now, if Chandler Jones is coming to Washington and he's seeing that Ty Nsekhe is starting at left tackle, he's salivating at the opportunity. And you got to think to yourself, we're probably going to be stacking a lot to the left. Putting some tight end help back there, probably putting in a little bit of help at the running back position to help contain a Chandler Jones. Didn't have to happen. I was impressed. I watched a lot of Ty Nsekhe. I had to watch this game twice because a good portion of the offensive grade in this football game was just me going back when I wasn't watching Ty Nsekhe and I wasn't watching the other members of this offensive line. Just being able, sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes you can become so focused on a particular position you got to go back and watch the football game to try to catch everybody else. And if you're a good follower of each position on this team, that's what you do. You don't settle for one sitting. I don't watch a whole lot of other football. I really don't. I missed a lot of games. I've been missing a lot of games here the last couple of weeks because I've just been concentrating on Redskin football. That's all I'm interested in right now. It's funny how that's completely changed from 10 years ago. Because I used to watch all the games. But watching Redskin football right now and watching the performance of a Ty Nsekhe needs to be given some huge recognition for what he was able to do against Chandler Jones. Chandler was able to get to our quarterback and sack him, an ugly sack. But I submit to you, Redskin fans, that it could have been that way on a much more consistent basis if Ty Nsekhe would have been unable to do his job at left tackle. That would have been the evening that you would have been used to. It would have been a Vaitai, against the prowess of our pass rush that we had a couple of years ago with Ryan Kerrigan. It could have been that kind of performance, and it would have been excusable. It honestly would have been excusable because who's Ty Nsekhe compared to Chandler Jones? Ty Nsekhe put together really good some game film. Eventually, you're going to end up giving up a sack, and that's fine. But I was really impressed with, I think, Ty Nseke's technique. His initial first 3 steps on every block were something that I paid attention to because it's usually within 3 steps that Chandler Jones has found a way to get by you, whether it's underneath, whether it's around or through. And all 3 of those are techniques for a good pass rusher to get to the quarterback. And Ty was solid, man. Ty was solid. There are some plays in this where he was ugly, and he probably couldn't have. Sorry, my nose is itching like crazy. It probably would have been chalked up as a sack if Kirk wouldn't have got the ball out as quickly as he did. But all things notwithstanding, not having anybody there at all, or having somebody that was way more inept, it would have been a much different outcome with a Chandler Jones in the backfield. So I think that Kirk Cousins owes this offensive line, especially Ty Nsekhe, a huge bear hug, because they did a fairly decent job protecting him in this football game. The second quarter of this football game, you had a short pass to a tight end. There was a lot of ineptitude on this offense for the Arizona Cardinals. Balls bouncing off of people's heads. Because people are running the wrong routes. People are running the wrong routes. They don't necessarily know what routes they're running, what the coverages are, where they need to be, when to turn and look for the football. And then you got a quarterback who's not necessarily throwing the football where it needs to be either. You got a short pass on a post to a tight end that ends up getting thrown way behind him, right into the waiting arms of a Preston Smith, who ends up bobbling a little bit. I don't think he was necessarily expecting this football, and as an outside linebacker, you're not expecting a football to be thrown to you. It never gets thrown to you. And that ball was thrown to him, and he barely caught it. But the fact that he was able to catch it and able to run with it and was able to actually draw a penalty for a horse collar tackle was phenomenal. It was really good. Talk about the highest of the highs, only to be returned with the lowest of the lows. Thank you, Vernon Davis, for catching the football and coughing it right up back to the defense. I don't know what's going on with Vernon Davis right now. I think Vernon Davis is a person that I'm going to tell you right now, if you want to lead into a little bit of a secret for the BFG Grease board, but part of my notes for the Arizona Cardinal game when it comes to Vernon Davis is that he checked out. He has checked out after our last loss that knocked us out of playoff contention. I'm not seeing a whole lot out of him. I'm seeing some fairly decent blocking, but as far as effort goes and trying to get open and catching the football, I'm not seeing that effort there. I'm kind of questioning because this is the second game in a row where he's had some major blunders, things that he is not notorious for. I'm not seeing the same Vernon Davis that I saw against the Seattle Seahawks, and that's a little disturbing. That's unfortunate to see, because if I'm Vernon Davis, I understand that I'm playing on a one-year contract, and I need to do anything that I possibly can, regardless of this team's postseason standing. I need to put forth some sort of body of work that's going to allow me to gain another contract to get a couple more years behind my belt before I hang him up. So Vernon, I think, needs to step up a little bit more. Whether we see that or not, we'll see that in the next couple of games. We've got the next couple of games coming up here. We'll be against the Denver Broncos and the New York Giants. Fairly interesting games to watch. More evaluating to be done. Again, taking a look at the second half of this game, I posted in my notes that, yes, Ty Nsekhe still ended up doing really well in the second half of this football game, as well as he did in the first half. Anthony Lanier, that hand deflection into Gabbert, is having a great game. I believe that was on a 3rd and long. Getting that hand, that saved our ass. That definitely saved our ass. Junior Gillette had a hand deflection in this football game. That was good to see. Perine had a couple of interesting runs in this football game. Some really good effort. He's not getting a whole lot of blocking for him in these last couple of games. And the yards that he's able to get that are positive yards, or a lot of it, is after he's already been hit. So I'm giving credit where credit is due as far as Perine is going. Perine is a workhorse for us right now. And think about this. If you are not on the Perine train, and if you are not sold on Samaje Perine, you need to ask yourself, what happens if he goes down? Right now, he is pretty much the only thing at running back that is giving even the defense some sort of idea that we could possibly run the football. Without a Samaje Perine back there, you are not stacking the box against the Washington Redskins. You are not respecting them on the running play at all. And you're going to be playing a lot of nickel coverage. You're going to be playing a lot of zone coverage. It becomes much more difficult for a Kirk Cousins to be able to squeeze that football downfield if you don't have somewhat of a run threat with Samaje Perine. I realize that I'm talking about a lot of things where I'm contradicting myself. You can't have it both ways. Giving wide receivers 10 looks a game and then talking about, sticking to the running game with Samaje Perine. I understand that. All I know is that I'm not necessarily seeing a whole lot of either one right now. So this game, an ugly win. This is not a game we should have won, but we did. I'm glad that we did. We ended up winning 20-15, improving our record to 6-8. Taking a look down the road at the Denver Broncos, I don't really know a whole lot about the Denver Broncos. Honestly, the AFC West is not a division that I follow. I don't follow any AFC team, to tell you the truth, now that I think about it. I used to think that there would be an AFC team that I would want to take up and enjoy and like. along with the Washington Redskins, and I can't do it. I cannot do it. The AFC is the AFC. So I don't pay a whole lot of attention to what goes on in that conference. But the Denver Broncos are a team that has struggled mightily. They are in much, much dire need of a quarterback right now. Taking a look at their record, I believe they're at 5-9. Their record is even worse than ours. Their defense is huge, playing really, really well. But their offense is abysmal. They don't have a quarterback. They've lost a lot of games in a row. They just recently beat the Jets and the Colts. And then they have us and the Chiefs. And I can tell you right now, a lot of Denver fans are seeing the Redskins and the Chiefs as potential wins, especially since Washington put together this abysmal performance against the Arizona Cardinals. This might actually be a good game. And you have some people right now that are going to be pissed off because a lot of their defensive players got snubbed for the Pro Bowl. A couple of their players got snubbed for the Pro Bowl. They still put together a fairly decent group that's going. Of course, Von Miller and Aqib Talib, those guys are going, and that's really no surprise. Which segues me into my next segment here, talking about the Washington Redskins and the Pro Bowl selection. A couple people that we got going to the Pro Bowl. Trent Williams is going to the Pro Bowl. Linebacker Ryan Kerrigan will be starters. That is something that I don't put a whole lot of stock into Pro Bowl selections, but when I do, I prefer starter selections. I'm not a big fan of alternates because people tend to forget when people are selected as alternates. A lot of Washington Redskin football players that have been quoted as making the Pro Bowl have really only been selected as alternates, which I'd much rather have starters, honestly. But we have two people that got put into that group right now, Ryan Kerrigan and Trent Williams. Unfortunately, named as a reserve as an alternate was guard Brandon Sheriff. Brandon Sheriff should have been a starter as guard. He really should have been. Brandon Sheriff is one of the best guards right now in football. As far as I'm concerned, he is a phenomenal talent for us. I just think that our inefficiencies at center have really kind of overexposed our guards position, both left guard and right guard. And you can see it in a couple of these games trying to compensate for that center position, and that's going to compromise your guard. But all that, being what it is, also listed as alternates were linebackers Zach Brown and cornerback Josh Norman. Josh Norman, I think, could have been selected as a first-team starter, but his last couple of weeks here have not been all that impressive. But Pro Bowl selection is what it is. Not really a whole lot that I put into stock as far as Pro Bowl selections go, but there are a lot of people who like to put stats into that. So, congratulations to those individuals who've made Pro Bowl selection. Moving on to the last topic that I have a challenge for some of the individuals who like to comment on my page, and anybody who watches videos is welcome to comment on my page. I want to give you a little bit of an idea of a particular subject matter that has come up the last couple of weeks, and that is what to do at tight end. I want to get a pulse of the individuals that watch my program to get an idea of what it is that you guys would do at the tight end position, how you would evaluate this position. Right now, we have Niles Paul. We have Jeremy Sprinkle. But the main concern that I have at tight end, obviously, that everybody has, is the two other individuals we have playing tight end at this position. That's Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis. Jordan Reed's been out since the Dallas game. That's, I believe, the first Dallas game. That's not the second Dallas game. He's been out for a majority of this season. And there's been a lot of buzz on what do we do with Jordan Reed? Just like every year we talk about Jordan Reed. I don't know if half you guys are tired of hearing this, but I'm tired of hearing about Jordan Reed. I'm tired of hearing about the injuries. I'm tired of hearing about him being gone. Does that mean that I want him gone? More on that later. I want to get a pulse of the individuals who are fans of this team or not necessarily fans of this team. Whoever. We have Jordan Reed right now, who has a little bit of an out clause in his contract right now, who after this season is going to be given a lot of money, unless if we opt out. And we also have Vernon Davis, signed a 1-year contract. Do we want to bring him back, or do we want to let him go? We don't have a whole lot of options at tight end as far as passing the football go. Right now, that tight end position has been a huge component of the success of Kirk Cousins and his ability to get the ball to go downfield. One of the things I will say, Vernon Davis has put together a banner year, a wonderful year. as far as his repertoire is concerned and his argument to be signed to a long-term deal by anybody. He has shown that he is capable of blocking and doing a really, really good job at doing that. His consistency has been good, although I've questioned his last 2 games. He's pulled some pretty bonehead moves, and I got to question whether his initiative is there. But all things being equal, this whole season has been a major success for Vernon Davis. Do we sign him back? Is he a long-term solution for us? Or is he a guy that we end up saying, hey, you know what? You might be worth too much. You might be a little bit too much money, too rich for our skin. We're going to have to part ways. And the Jordan Reed situation. Tremendous talent. Phenomenal talent. One of the best tight ends. I'd have to say probably one of the top 3 tight ends in the league when healthy. As a pass catcher, one of the top 3 tight ends. Just a phenomenal talent. Would be a huge spark and a huge addition to anybody, regardless of how few games he plays in an actual season. What is your opinion? What would you guys do at the tight end position? Retain or let go? Do we opt out of the Jordan Reed contract, or do we see it through and pay him the money that he has coming to him contractually? And Vernon Davis, do we sign him to a long-term deal, or do we let him go based on all the outlying factors? So that's pretty much going to do it for me, guys. Taking a look, this is the review of the Arizona Cardinal game. Doing our recap, covering the Pro Bowl, and then, of course, the tight end debacle. There are a lot of debacles on this football team, too. That won't be the only one that I come up with. The next game will be against the Denver Broncos, and after that will be the New York Giants, and that will be a bow on an otherwise losing season for the Washington Redskins once again. So that's going to do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. Until next week, next time, for us fans of the Twin Feather, we ride together. Redskins for life. We'll catch you all next time. Peace out.